Yeah, Sam, how's it going, mate? You good?
Yeah, all good, mate. How are you?
I'm well. And guess what? I'm sweating. I'm absolutely, mate, it's gross. I'm slimy. It's not fun.
No, it's horrible. All the kids are screaming outside playing in their little paddling pool, so I've just had to shut that window. So I'm literally baking, mate.
It's bad. Next door, I've got a trampoline. I don't know if you had a trampoline when you was younger, but like once
Yeah.
it goes, what is it? I think it's when it starts rusting, the springs go like ridiculous and they're just on it constantly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I hated that. Just like bouncing. I used to have a trampoline as a kid, like proper sadness. But like I used to like because I'm a big cricketer. I used to literally pad up, get into my trampoline with a net, literally throw a ball at the net, and then like play with us and play the shot
Play
like through.
yourself.
Yeah, I was about to say that, but
Pads on the trampoline. That's a fetish, isn't it? That's a new
trampoline.
one. That's good
That
shit.
was my practice, mate. The perks of
Yeah,
like
I
having like a really big age group with your siblings, like you just have to play on your own.
it's
But
true, mate. It's true. I There's like a group of lads in our like we live in like a cul-de-sac back home. And they were always a little bit older, a little bit heavier as well. So we used to go on my trampoline, you know, that double bounce where they'll just
yeah,
like, oh mate, I
oh,
shit
you're
you
sat
not.
down, made double bounce, and you just go flying. Was that
Mate,
you, mate?
honestly, that was me. I was just this light little skinny lad that just got yeeted into the next garden. It was bad. It's like that's contact prep. That's probably why I got bloody conk
Yeah,
on
that's
me.
that's why you bloody broke your hip, mate.
True. Right then, mate. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I want people to kind of get to know you a little bit. So, what is your favorite film?
Ooh, tough one, mate. Um, I really, as a kid, like I loved like the Bad Boys films, like
Sick.
class in it. Bad Boys 2 is just like an
Bad Boys
unreal
too.
film. Like I reckon, like that is like quite a heavy like action kind of film, and then that's not me. Like I don't usually go into like those kind of
Mm.
films, but like just that as a kid growing up, like just proper into that. Then probably some of that I could probably recite, like super bad, like just a class comedy
Sick.
in it. Like that's I picked two there, mate. But I'm having it.
Mate, I'll take Superbad. I think I'm on that. I'm on that as well. I feel like I could maybe not recite it off by heart, but if you put it on, I think I could tell you every
Yeah,
word. I know the next scene. I know where it's going. Um, yeah, that's good shit. That's good shit. Good options. Good options. Right then, cool. So, who are you, mate? What do you do?
so Sun Farmer. So obviously went to uni, studied sports science at Sheffield Hallam with yourself. Like came through the same year group as you, and a few of the other lads that we became really close with. Yeah, just throughout that, just wanted to get into the realm of like performance sport. Like I just loved like have been in that. I think that's where I saw myself. Like coming into uni, not doing any coaching at all. Like I was just a proper like newbie when it comes to that. So knew that it was challenging to get into. So had to find myself onto the internships that were available. And it was really good at Sheffield Hallam. There were so many links with other clubs and like facilities around the city of Sheffield. So managed to get myself on a internship with Sheffield Wednesday in my third year. I actually applied in the second year but didn't get it. So went back round again in my final year of undergrad and managed to get onto that. And yeah, like I said, threw myself in the deep end, and I think it was really good with some of the mentors that we had there. We had a guy called Luke Cooper who had came from a background at Leicester City. So, and from his experience of how he developed as a coach, he almost like just threw us in at the deep end. It was almost that sink or swim in terms of like delivery. We just got given a group of like 20 kids to just coach, and it was almost like coach what you want. We're not going to set a frame like a specific session that you have to do. It's just in line with the frameworks that were presented to us, and that was really good. Like for me, like just to be able to communicate better with coaches and find out what went well and what didn't go well, and yeah, just put all my effort into that really in my third year. Like you know how it is, like uni. Well, our course it was a little bit more, our time was freed up a little bit in our third year. So like we just had our dissertation and a couple of other, so our contact time was a little bit less. So I was just put all my eggs in one basket really, and just like threw myself into that internship, working 4 days a week really, and thankfully paid off. They saw that my commitment to that and me wanting to develop as a practitioner, they offered me a funded master's. So going into the following year, I, like yourself, we both took that part-time route of doing our masters, which was really good, to be fair. Like, in terms of, it allowed us to open up other opportunities and to get experience in that field, because like I think we all know, like, you can learn everything at uni, but can you apply that in the real world? That's the most important thing. So yeah, so I was almost working full time leading up the 9s to 16s program at Sheffield Wednesday, and that just allowed me to get into the nitty gritty of what long term athletic development looked like and how we can progress that through a pathway and hopefully produce players that are ready to step up, not into just the Sheffield Wednesday first team, but also step up into a professional environment, whether that be elsewhere as well or at a lower league in non-league football. And again, it's about creating an environment that you create good people as well, not just good athletes. And I think that's really important to me in that aspect. So yeah, we can give them all everything in the world in terms of like strength and conditioning, but can we actually develop a culture where they come away from the environment and have had a positive experience? Everyone knows like the statistics of what it takes to become a professional footballer, and not many make it all the way through. And I think we need to really realize that. So it's about giving these kids an environment where they feel like they're happy, they enjoy it, and they can also learn like really valuable lessons in life, whether that's how to recover well, whether that's how to actually structure your training properly, how to sleep well, how to eat well, and yeah, just creating a positive environment in that sense. And yeah, it was really good. Also touched working with like the PDP phase, which is like under 18s, under 23s, in more of a professional way. So works closely with the under 18s and 23 sports scientists in there, and how we actually align our long-term athletic development pathway, because that's what we want. That's ultimately what our aim is. So everything has to align from almost like a top-down approach. And so I always call it, so it's working in a performance backwards approach. So we know what the benchmarks are for our first team players or our under 23s. How can we actually get there from a youth point of view?
Okay, so you like just touching on that point. So you've got like your first team, and I'm guessing you know what they do and what they have to cope with, and then you're just watering it down like year by year, stage by stage. Is that kind of how it?
Yeah, 100%. It's ultimately being able to prepare our athletes for that professional environment. So if we know what the professional environment, like training wise, looks like, it's how can we actually approach that in a step-by-step approach, so that our players go into it and they can tolerate those demands. And yeah, so that's how we align our goals, really.
Sick, man. That's cool. And what are you doing now?
So yeah, so obviously that led me up to graduate my master's in, what year was it, Jordan? 2019, something like that.
Ages ago. It seems like a million miles away, but like I can still remember just being like at Hallam, just training that, with missing lectures to go and get an arm day in.
That was literally us, wasn't it?
It's so bad, mate. It's mad, isn't it, when you think about it? Like, you think like we do this for a career, and we're like, research methods? No. Eyes and tries. Yeah.
Literally, remember we had like that Wednesday morning, we had like those red zone sessions. Brutal, mate. Brutal.
Mate, I reckon that's what did me. That's what killed me off.
Literally was. So like it was like 8 I think you were coaching at like, I think you had 7 a.m. rowers or something, and at 8 on a Wednesday, and like you said, no, I can only do 8 a.m. and like me and our friend Matt Croyle, obviously living together at the time, we were like, oh, for fuck's sake, we got to get up early to do a run, and like it was like nap. But
it's true though. It's true. Like I'm not an early bird whatsoever, but if I'm up because of work, I just expect everybody else to be up. Like if you're not up, Sam, you're a lazy fucker. That's it. That's the end of the world.
As soon as your day starts, everyone else's day has already started. But
that's
fair enough, mate. But no, I think we created that environment as like such a good place to be at Hallam. Like I miss it now, and like we always speak about it, and like I miss training with the lads and stuff, and Just like
It's huge.
just having
It's
that buzz.
mate, it's like that's one of the things I really struggle with. Probably I've done for the last 2 or 3 years, and I've had little glimpses of good phases of training. I pretty much always like write myself programs. They always link and link and link. So from a programming perspective, they're as good as they've ever been, kind of.
Yeah.
But the thing that is missing, I think that is the thing that's kind of holding me back from really kind of chasing training, is just that, like that camaraderie, you know, of just like, if I get to like the last quarter of a session, I'm bad for just bagging it off now. Like
that was me today, literally like half an hour ago. Like I just done, I think it was like a shoulder day today. I knew I had arms to finish or something, and I was just like, you know, I can't be asked. Like there's just no like the motivation does drop when like you train on your own, and sometimes you just get on with it. Like you just bang your headphones in and then just get on because you know you have to. But like going back from that experience of what we had at Hallam, like it was just so, there's that camaraderie of people, like everyone wanting people to succeed and like just like push, and it really pushed us through. But yeah, definitely missing that sort of environment. And like even like just we'd mess about in the gym, we'd try different things, different setups and stuff, and it was just like just a fun place to be around. And that place, with that gym especially, was just the perfect environment to do that in.
Kitted out, good space. Yeah, it's good. I think when I had like I think it would have been just after my time at Warwick. It was during COVID actually, so I got myself a bar, got some bumpers. I'd like.
I remember it. We were all just sharing, like sending each other in our groups, like just like, oh, look what I've got today, lads. I think the only thing I could source was a massive 36 kilo kettlebell. I couldn't fucking lift it.
That's it. Just push it around a little bit, tip it. Kettlebell
Dragging
tips. Yeah. But I had a really good, like, I would say like 4 months. Yeah, I'd probably say like 4 months of training, and I was training on my own. And I think it was because it was new, it was novel, you know, I'm training because
like
home.
It was in your garden as well, and it was just like
perfect.
And there was nothing else to do, was it? There was fuck all to do. Like
well,
we'd all watch Tiger King, hadn't we? So.
Yeah, literally smash Tiger King, mate. I went through a phase of I might have spoke about him before. You know Mike Israetel, the Renaissance periodization guide. Have you heard of him?
No, I've not heard of him.
So he's huge, mate. He's a bodybuilder or bodybuilder type, you know, he's into hypertrophy. He's probably on the same level as like Brad Schoenfeld in terms of the research side. And he's a unit. And his way of training is he's a 2-a-day guy. So I just kind of replicated that. And it was so good because it just kind of gave my COVID period some structure, which was sick. But I tell you what, like I needed a deload so much quicker, even though I'd only do like a 4 or 5 week phase. And usually I could kind of go up to about 8 or 10. That's kind of where I kind of try and do a deload most of the time, to be fair. I needed one after 4 just because it was new. There wasn't any extra volume or intensity or anything like that. But it just got me there that much sooner. It was mad. It was weird. I like that sort of experimenting though.
No, that's it. And like, I think that gave it everyone, like we were all experimenting with different things, like having to load things differently to what we're used to. Like none of us had barbells, like, and bumper plates. Like it was like trying to be like inventive and that such. And you know, it was good. It was good in a way, but then it just, when the rain came down, completely ruined your day, didn't it?
Oh mate, like I told you about I had a gazebo, didn't I? I called it a gazebo. It was sick. It was unreal, mate. Like, so I created this shelf type thing, you know, I was weighing it down with bricks and all sorts. And we had, like, during COVID, the biggest like storm, and it literally just like dragged my gazebo up in the air and like slammed all the bricks into next door's garden. Genuinely, if they was out like getting their washing in or something, they would have been dead. Like it was so bad. But yeah, it just exploded. I was fuming.
I remember you were like setting up your bar and like it was proper near you, like your kitchen window or something. And I remember like you were saying to me like, my mum is fuming.
Honestly, mate,
and I wasn't the same, mate. I'm living at my girlfriend's house and her mum, and I broke 2 patio slabs dropping when I got my barbell.
Yeah, I wasn't my mother's son for a while. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she wanted to adopt or get rid of me. What do you do when you get rid of a kid and you want to put them up for adoption? Do you adopt them? Do you put them up for adoption? I don't know. Lingo. Anyway,
I
so
don't
what
know,
you
mate.
doing now then? Where you at?
So yeah, just touching on COVID. So obviously COVID came around. I actually, because I was on like a fixed term contract with Sheffield Wednesday, I actually unfortunately lost my role, which is understandable because the academy shut down for like basically a whole year. They didn't need me like to be there full time. So it was just is what it is. So I was back to like square on really. Didn't really have a role in S&C as such, and so just trying to pick up any work as such to try and fund a life that I wanted to live. Thankfully, I was able to move back home. So, like say, paying rent was a lot less than what I was paying in Sheffield, so could survive in that sense. But like ultimately, my S&C career took like a bit of a back burner. So I was, like I said, just applying for jobs left, right, and centre. And thankfully, so me and person you've had on the podcast before, Tommy Monday, so we'd set up like this almost like a performance page, so geared for helping footballers develop, like build fitter, faster, stronger athletes, and we were able to get some income through that in terms of our online program and delivering one-to-one sessions, and that was really good for me from a perspective of finding different ways to communicate with people and how to actually present information, and also delving into like the realms of social media like yourself, like finding ways that what is going to be the best content that I can put out that people are going to interact with and build off that. So yeah, that was really good, like a good little like side hustle that we did. So we managed to get a few people, and I'd like to say that it's been successful for us. It's been something that we've almost been able to not rely on, but like it's been in the background ticking away, and it opens up different opportunities for us. So being able to partner with different people who have other social media platforms that are growing on, like for YouTube, for example, we are then able to collaborate with them and sell programs under their name, and building up different partnerships. And that's been class. And yeah, so like I say, that whole period from like 2020 to basically now, it was just applying for every job that was going, like that was local around me, and there wasn't that many jobs because not many places were open. So and it was a case of I was still getting interviews. So to be fair, you must be sick of me asking you for interview advice and stuff, but like the amount of interviews I've had in the last 2 years, just trying to like chipping away at everything, and like and that was almost like my motivation. Like I'm still getting these interviews with my experience, so it wasn't a thing for me to like, what's the point? I'll just go and do something else. I'll be just sit in an office job or something.
It's
like
around the corner. It's there. You just know it's
there.
coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I just needed that like chance. But yeah. So and thankfully, so found myself back in a role at Aston Villa in their women's setup. So applied for that, more based in their RTC. So that gave me like a little part-time S&C bit on the side, as well as doing all the stuff I was doing with Gamesharp. And then so yeah, just really threw myself into that. It allowed me to go back into that professional environment, and the facilities we have down at Bodymore is just unreal for that setup. So for the men's and women's to basically all have the same site, and is almost like slightly unheard of in the country, and it's really good for the game. And obviously with the women's games growing massively, especially with on the back of the Euros win that they've just had, and I'd expect that to just continue to grow. But yeah, that's been really good. So working with that younger age group from all the way from under 9s up to under 16s. So, and to be fair, mate, like we get so much contact time with the players, and it's class. Like there's not many clubs, and especially there's not many boys academies that get like 2 gym sessions a week with their under 16s, under 14s. So we're actually able to do quite a lot with them, and it does show. We do come up against teams, and we are physical, and we're able to compete with those more physically demanding sides. When we play the boys team, it doesn't really show that we're miles off it. And I think that's a big part of us being there and delivering these physical sessions. But no, so still doing that, and then gone into more of a more of the academy side of things now. So working with the older age group, so the under 21. So, and that's where you get a little bit more specific in terms of what they're doing each week, in terms of what training looks like for each individual day, and how we monitor that loading wise, and how we also implement that in terms of our gym based conditioning.
How so with the younger girls then, so the ones that get like 2 gym sessions a week, what's kind of the philosophy around training them at that point then? How are you kind of looking at what you do with them?
So we get the girls in the gym from around, our under 12s come in, but they come in later on in the season. So we transition them into the gym from under 12s. And if I just start from the bottom, it's all about, so my philosophy around training youth athletes is it's a movement matters approach. So we've all heard it. So I really like the phrase brilliant basics. So can we do the basics well? Can we move well? Can we get into a position? Can we then look to load a position? Can we look to progress this? And then if not, can we look to regress? And I think that's ultimately those key simple steps. So can they move well? So can they squat, hinge, push, pull? We all know the movement patterns, and then just progressing that and providing that in an environment where they can do it safely, but they can also get success from it from an early age. So I think that's where you have to be a little bit more like cute with like the way that you're coaching, in terms of, you remember these aren't adults, they're young athletes. So you have to kind of use like your external coaching cues, your use of analogies, just to get them to think about it a little bit differently to what you or I would think about. And so from that, and it's really good because they develop a longer continuum. So I keep my programming really simple from that age group. So I've touched around the 1x20, and I really enjoy it because it allows them to get in a lot of work and a lot of quality. And then also touching on just getting them moving, as long as, so whether that's they work for 30 seconds and within an exercise, and just get them doing repetitions, and hopefully they remember the movements from that. But from that, then we go into a little bit more. So when they go to under 16s, it's then a little different because our focus changes a little bit. So with the girls' side, they've gone past maturity. They're coming up to their like predicted adult height, and it's almost like, right, we need to prepare them for that academy football now, because in 6 months they might then come into us full time. So we need to get them as robust as possible to cope with those demands. So that's where we'll then look at more of a strength focus. So we've got all our physical profiling. So we've got access to our jump data, to our NOR board. And it's about how we can almost tick off small wins from that, from our physical profiling. So what does each individual player need? And it almost comes a little bit more individualistic from that older age group. But it's about just doing it as a step-by-step process of it's a movement matters first approach ultimately, and that's it for me. So can they move well? Because I think you gotta remember they're growing at that stage as well. So so it's really important. They're gonna lose a bit of coordination throughout that age group, and I think we just need to keep it simple, really, but also fun and challenging ways. Because ultimately, you're not going to have it where they just do a goblet squat for 6 months, because they're just going to find that boring. And you have to tap into that, really. So can you find a different way of doing it? So I've done like movement circuits with them. So whether that's like frog walks, or like they're still getting in like a squat pattern, but they're getting it in a more of a fun way. And can we challenge them a little bit differently in that? Can we implement some game-based stuff around movement?
Yeah, I think that sort of stuff's really cool, and it's super interesting, but also for me, I find it quite hard. Like working with like younger athletes, that side of trying to keep things engaging. It's obstacle courses, new ways of kind of telling the story, you know, instead of it being a medicine ball squat, you've got a dragon egg and you've got to protect the dragon egg and you've got to move around and all that stuff. And I find it such a valuable skill when I see that stuff done well, because I'm like, you've cracked it. Like, you are such a master of your domain when somebody can just get a group of kids and just get them engaged in a task. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's, and I think you just touched on it, like it's keeping them engaged, and that's the really big thing you tend to see people come in and struggle with. So from an on pitch point, we get them on pitch for half an hour every session. They train twice a week, and our first bit of training is our physical block, and getting them really engaged in that half an hour when all they want to do as a 10-year-old, as an 11-year-old, is play football. So how can you drive that engagement from the off? And I think that just comes from being able to communicate well. So I'm not going to speak in a really, even though I've got the most monotone voice ever, mate, but I'm not going to speak like that to a 10-year-old. I'm going to have about 4 shots of espresso before every session and just get absolutely buzzing for it. And usually if you bring the energy, the kids are going to deliver that energy as well. And again, I think the biggest thing as well is competition is a big thing that can help you along the way. Because really, if you've got a group of 20 players, young players, they're going to, that in an elite environment, they're going to be competitive. They want to win. Because if they didn't want to win, then I don't think they would be there. So you being able to provide a competitive environment for them and challenge them in different ways, but still making it fun and competitive is a big thing that's going to go a long way. But then, like I say, like it's all about how you communicate that as well. So I think the biggest thing as well, when we get interns in, I've led on like intern development programs, and what you see is, and fair enough, like it might be their first ever coaching experience, but the biggest thing I always say to them is, don't just stand there and deliver the session or like teach a session. You've got to be involved in the session. So get around, like speak with the players, engage with each individual, like learn about them, and it can go a long way.
Mate, that competition piece, that's super important. I think, like you said, in kids, but I think even with us lot, you know, older adults, just finding a way of getting somebody thinking, right, I need to do better here. I need to push, and, you know, jumping higher, running faster, going for longer. You know, we were speaking about the red zone running stuff we were doing on a Wednesday, like just trying to get a little bit more competitive, either with somebody else or yourself. It's so important. And it's Mike Moore, he was saying he was training with his brother in Berlin. You know, they're both ice hockey boys. He was training with his brother, and they were classic like bench session or something. I think they decided of doing like an AMRAP on, I don't know, 70 kilo or something like that. So Mike went first, smashed out the AMRAP, got to, I don't know, let's say 15 reps. Danny has a go, and Mike's looking at him thinking, oh shit, he's got me here. So he got to about 16, and Mike just pushed the barbell down on him. He was like, you're not having that 17th, you twat. I mean, I love shit like that. Like, proper good. Petty. You got to find a good way of any means necessary, get the win.
No, exactly.
But yeah, I think that competition thing, I think that's so important. And especially with what we were saying before, training by ourselves, it's finding those ways of keeping it engaged for ourselves as well. And that's not always an easy thing to do.
No, and that's it. And again, I think it's realizing, like going back to the environment that I work in, it's, you know, you're not going to provide a professional contract for every single player as they get older. So it's, again, every session that I go into, I have to come away knowing that I've put a smile on a kid's face, because then they've had that positive experience. And yeah, that's it. Can we make that as fun and engaging and competitive as possible for them?
Yeah, for sure. Talk to me around the maturation stuff. So when, like, how are you assessing when they reach that kind of point of when they're in their adult body, and how does that information get used then?
So yeah, it's a really big thing in like youth sport, and like how we we track it, how we measure it, how we track it, and what we actually do with that, with the data that we have. And I think firstly, it's also it's important knowing how you're going to measure it first. So that's our simple like maturation offset, or our predicted adult height equations. So using the research, like we use the maturation method from at Aston Villa. So that's where we take the adult stature of the parent's height, and then put that into like a little equation with our sitting height. Go on, let me go again, mate. I've really fumbled on that one. But, go on, start me up again with that question.
So talk to me a little bit around the maturation stuff then. So how are you assessing like when they're in their adult body, and then what are you doing with that data? How does that kind of inform what you do as a coach?
So yeah, growth and maturation is a really like important topic around youth athletes, and there's many things that happen throughout the body like during this time, and it's really important that we're aware of that, so we can almost like be a little bit more proactive with our approach of what they're doing. But I think first of all, you need to measure the athletes. So it's about having that data that's available to us. So how do we actually get our predicted adult height? So we use Aston Villa the Maturation method, which takes their parental height and then the sitting height and standing height and body mass of the athlete. It then goes into an equation that is too smart for me, mate. To be fair, I just put it in Excel and then it bashes off a number for me. So that gives you like a predicted adult height in terms of I think it's in inches, and then we convert that. And basically we get a percentage of where they are at. So this refers to our maturity timing. So we know how far off they are from 100% adult height essentially. And then that can categorize who our early developers are, who our late developers are, and who are the ones that are currently going through or who are an average developer. So usually what we see in the women's game is they'll hit this a year earlier than the boys. So around about 12, 13. So it's really important that we're monitoring that really closely. So what we do is we take measurements in terms of growth rate every 4 weeks, and that almost gives us that growth rate indicator of how much they're growing in that time period. So we've got their growth and maturation, so their maturation predicted adult height for that athlete. We've got their growth rate. What does that then look like? So what the research is telling us is the identified risk factors are those that are kind of at this 88 to 93% of predicted adult height. So that they're the ones who are probably our at-risk groups. And then what's going to happen is that we can then come into like growth related injuries can occur. So they usually occur distal to proximal. So you can see the first one occurring at the heel. So it's usually like your severs disease, and then they occur a little bit later on. We then go into our knees, which is our more Osgood's type injuries. Then further up the line, they go to the hip and lower back issues as they get later on. And it's really important that we manage that throughout. So if we've got all the data that's available to us in terms of, right, what's their predicted adult height, right, how much are they actually growing? And then if we can see that they're growing massively throughout this, and they're in this identified risk of predicted adult height, then it's maybe a conversation with the technical coach about, right, what does their training look like? Do we have to manage their minutes? Is the player displaying symptoms of these types of injuries? Does the player move differently? Are they losing any coordination? But I think it's really challenging because some players won't ever go through any of these symptoms, so they'll just fly through their growth and maturation, and they won't have any symptoms or problems through it. But then it's really picking out those players that identify that risk. So what we do at Villa is that we've got that eyes, ears, numbers approach. So we've got the numbers, we can see what's going on with the player in terms of what they look like. What does their movement look like? Does the technical coach flag up, right, they're not moving well, that they're going through that growth spurt? And then ears, what are the players actually saying to us? So I think if all them three are ticking for us, then that's a management of what they're doing in terms of load. So that might be a case of pulling them from a session is the extreme, but I think it's so easy to do that. But then it's really important to remember that some of these players travel an hour and a half to come to training. If we just pull them out of a session, what else are they doing? Can they actually do something else that's really valuable and it's going to develop them? Because I really like the phrase availability develops ability. So we're wanting to keep them as available for training as possible so that they can develop that technical and tactical excellence. So it's massively important to us that we keep them in training for as long as possible, but training modifications may have to happen. And that can just be a simple conversation with the technical coach, whether that's if we know they're doing let's say a 4v4 small-sided games in quite a tight area, that's going to be a lot of acceleration, decelerations. What do we know from an accel and decel point of view, from a physiologically or metabolic level? We know that's going to be an increase in stress on our joints. So how can we actually reduce the number of accel decels that player has to do within that session, but can still take part? Can they become a floater? So do they actually play for both teams? So they don't have to go and press and defend. They don't have to do those kind of things. So then we're taking away that metabolic like action for that individual, and hopefully they've still got time on the ball. They can still develop in terms of their technical skills, their tactical skills, but that might have been a way of saving them in terms of their loading. And then there's so many different ways that you can do that. And that's just about building that buy-in with the technical coach so that everyone knows what they're doing, everyone understands what's going on within each individual. And I think that's where the measurements come into play in terms of how you present that to the wider MDT. So can we present who are our identified risks to the players, right? That's a conversation with everyone involved, that do we need to make modifications to that individual?
Do you find that the MDT, the multidisciplinary team and the technical coach, are they usually quite receptive to those changes based off your data? Have you found that some are better than others at different clubs, or is everybody pretty much on board with that?
So I think it's a case of some are better than others. So some really buy into it, but I think it's about delivering it in a way that, as long as we're still involving them in the conversation, it's not a no, they're not doing it because I say.
Yeah,
it's like as long as we're not coming in all guns blazing, like, no, that player's not playing. Like we're still including them in the conversation about, right, we know this player's identified risk, we can see it, we've got the data to back it up, the player is actually telling us that they're struggling, and that kind of builds a little bit of buy-in, and they're a little bit more receptive, technical coaches, because they know they have to be. And it's frustrating for them as it is for the players, for us, because they plan for a session knowing that they've got 12 players, and then all of a sudden they might have a player drop out, and that kind of ruins the rest of their session flow. But for that player, the player wants to train as much as possible. If they have to then pull out, then they're out injured. And I think it's going back to that availability develops ability. It's keeping them out there for as long as possible so that they can develop technical and tactical excellence. And I think it's that yeah, we might need to reduce the time that they're spent in the full sessions, but ultimately we're picking that up later down the line, because if we didn't do that, then they're going to flare up and they're out for 6 weeks, and you've not got that player for 6 weeks, and then ultimately that's 6 weeks that player not developing, and at a critical stage of their academy journey. Because like if a player is injured for 12 weeks, like that's 12 weeks of football, 12 weeks of development they're missing. They come back, they're not as like technically sound as everyone else, they're rusty, so it may take them another 4 weeks to get back. Then all of a sudden you've lost, let's say, 3 to 4 months of them like developing those skills or honing in on those skills, and they're at the back of the queue. But it's about how we manage that exposure to the athletes with the data that we've got, and then yeah, just make sure everyone's like almost singing off the same hymn sheet and is aware of what's going on.
Yeah, that's how many like athletes coming through, like you mentioned around like the distal to proximal injuries and all those types of things. How many athletes do you feel like you managed to save? Because you mentioned so much there in terms of like all the details that go into being able to make a really informed decision, and it sounds like an absolute minefield. Like it sounds just like there's so much going on. Do you feel like, do you manage to save many and pull them out, or do some people kind of flare up with a really kind of serious injury and then you have to try and interject?
Yeah, I think it's knowing when to interject. Like that's the biggest thing, I think, because like from my experience, like some of these players will just fly through, and like why are we pulling them? Or like, yeah, they're identified as risks, but why are we pulling them or reducing them when they've not got? I think it's ultimately symptoms, and that has to come from the player, and we can almost see it, like, because if you know when a player is like hurting or is like wincing a little bit when they're running. So, and it's again going back to that eyes, ears, numbers approach of if they tick in all three, that's when we intercept and like do things differently. But it's about, like, say, like keeping them out there for as long as possible. And in terms of like knowing whether we've saved them, I think that's a really hard thing to like try and like predict and stuff, or put a number on it, because ultimately you don't know what's going to happen. But again, you can use that if we're modifying training, you can use that in terms of what you program in the gym as such as well. So right, if we know we're modifying training, we're going to have to modify our gym program as well, because from that point of view, what makes them sore or flares them up. So we know eccentric loading is probably going to be the big thing for us. It's going to flare them up even more. So can we do some more isometric base waves or get them really strong through that? So ultimately, what's happening in the body is their muscles aren't strong enough to cope with the growth of their bones. Like that. That's the simple point of view.
Yeah,
and that's what happens. And it's how can we actually still get them strong? And again, and I was reading something the other day, and it's like, is our training actually not appropriate for these athletes in terms of logistics as well? Because what you see in most academies is there's not that much space in terms of our training, because we throw every age group trains on the same night. So we're all piled in onto one astro, or one astro, one pitch. So what does that actually do? What are they lacking there? So are they not hitting top speed? Well, they probably aren't, because they've not got space to run. So if they're not hitting top speed, then from a robustness point of view, then they're not getting stronger from when they do have to then use top speed in a game. So, and I read that the other day. I don't know where, but like it really, like, it made sense to me. Like, it's
so true again, though. Like,
it is true, but like
the logistics, I think, like you've got like this needs analysis of an athlete. You know, you've got where you want them to be. You've got the physical qualities you need to develop based off the testing that you've done with that athlete. The next stage is like, well, what is actually possible? You know, and I think sometimes, you know, I have examples of coaching sessions that I lead at the moment where I'm like, this is so far from ideal, but you're so stuck because of the equipment you have access to, the time, you know, and it is just about trying to make things work. And I think in your case, what you just said there, getting them all in on one time, I imagine is it a money thing, or is it just the way that the week is like laid out for them?
I think it's like probably a bit of both. Like, it's space for one, not having enough space to get everyone on their own pitch, and ultimately that comes from the top, and like that's a decision that like we is out of our hands. So and again, like, it's having the time available in each pitch. Like, we're really lucky in the sense of we've got brilliant facilities at our place, but again, like, I think it's just like an operations kind of thing, and it's like it's probably above my head anyway. It's above probably my boss's head of like what they'll have their reasons, but like say, it's really easy for a technical coach to just bang in like small-sided games, and like from a physical point of view, we see a lot more like accel decels, and like I say, there's probably a lot more loading going on at that level because of the type of training that's going on. But again, that's where we're really important, and we have to communicate that with coaches. So, but yeah,
that's interesting, mate. I love that. Because I've not really spent much time. Well, I've spent no time in an academy setup like that, and particularly around football. It's always cool for me to hear the behind the scenes. You know, we have like little chats around certain bits, but you know, like I've learned around that maturation thing and that distal to proximal thing. It's not something I knew. So yeah, that's cool. Sweet. I'm gonna wrap it up, mate. What you got on for the rest of the day? What's the plan? It's your day off, right?
Probably first thing I'm gonna open this window and get the aircon on.
I don't
not aircon. I'm not that rich. Fan,
no.
Not aircon.
Fan.
Just chill, mate. Probably go for a walk later when it cools down. Bit of a coffee.
Yeah.
But no. What about you?
Mate, I'm stuck because I really want to train because I'm sweating anyway. So I'm like, I actually want to go to a place where I can just sweat and not worry about it because I just feel uncomfortable. I want to get my hair cut, but I cannot face the embarrassment of the barber having to like dab my head down so he can get a good cut in. Like, I don't think I can handle that.
Hey, the beard game's going strong at the minute.
In it thick, dead thick. It's been thicker. It's been thicker, but I think, you know, I forgot. Is it Amish people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that kind of look, you know, because it kind of grows out and it's weird, mate. Like it doesn't suit my face. But yeah, so I might even get that trimmed as well. But yeah, other than that, mate, just kind of cracking on. I've got a few programs I need to get done ahead of next week for some of the online guys. And then yeah, just chilled, to be fair, mate. Pretty easy Friday. I haven't left the house yet, so I need to do something. I'm a little hermit. But yeah, I just want to take the time just to thank you, mate. I appreciate you coming on. I know it's not the easiest thing, you and your absolute sauna, but you know, you've dropped some knowledge bombs for us today. Off the back of this podcast, mate, I'll put all your information in the context box below. No, description box below, so people can head over to your personal account and Gamesharp. So if there's any footballers out there that are looking for support online, Sam and Tommy, the boys at Gamesharp, are your guys. All right. But yeah, cheers for that, mate.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. But it's good to chat.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. See you in a bit.